welcome to Pictorial Planet. My name's John Finch. Last week I was down on the Mauritius coast. I was photographing a cave and I used FP4 and developed it in Geoffrey Crawly's FX1, a high acutance and sharp developer. So this week I'm going to be printing one of those negatives and I'll be using split grade printing. So if you want a reminder about how I do split grade, please have a look at the video first that I'll link below in the description. Because this week I'm going to crack straight into it and start split grade printing, and we'll see my workflow as I go through that. Hopefully at the end we're going to get a nice sharp print. So let's have a look. Here are the negatives, and you may notice they're looking a little bit thin. In fact, if you look back at previous videos of mine, you'll notice that most of my negatives look thin, and there's a good reason for this. And I think it was Crawly that said, and I can't find the reference to this, so if any of you have a reference to this, please send it to me. Please post it below in the comments. But I believe Crawly said that with acutance developers, a thinner negative is a better negative. The thinner it is and yet still able to print on normal paper, and I say normal paper meaning grade 2 for a medium format or grade 3 for 35mm, that is what's classed as normal grade. So the thinnest negative that can print on those normal grades is the best negative because it has the finest grain and is the sharpest print. Of course, if you develop a negative for less, you don't get as much grain. The grain is reduced. The longer you develop a negative for, the more grain you're going to introduce, and the larger the grain may appear. So Crawly thought a thinner negative was a better negative and a sharper negative when it came to acutance developers. Now later on, I know he said that with modern T or tabular grain films, a thicker negative is a better negative. So that's an interesting change for tabular films. But he never changed his mind, as far as I know, for normal classic films like Ilford FP4 and the other classic emulsions that have come out since his death. So thin negatives are the best for me, and I've pretty much proven that to myself. I'm very happy with thin negatives. Now I'm going to print one of these two here. So I've already marked this one. I put a little arrow. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little arrow there pointing to this one. And this is the one I've chosen. I've looked at them carefully with the loupe, and I believe this one is the best. Although honestly, I could hardly tell any difference. I probably changed the f-stop between the two, and the speed obviously was adjusted accordingly to keep the same exposure. But I like this one, so I'm going to print it. And what I'm hoping for is to get some really nice detail in this stonework around here, and in these pebbles at the front of the cave going into the back. Another thing to tell you is I rated this film at an EI of 200, which is the speed the film gives with FX1 Developer. I tested that and I found that to be correct. And this proves the point because the shadows deep down in the cave have still got a little bit of detail in them. So it really does increase the shadow speed of the film FX1. So now I'm going to take this negative and I'm going to take it to the enlarger and we're going to do some split grade. And like the first video I did on split grade printing, I use the 0 and the 5 filter. Usually, sometimes I might use the 1 and the 4, but most of the time it's a 0 and a 5. And honestly, I don't do split grade printing all the time. Often I'll use just normal grade printing. But I'm after detail here, so I want to really try to eke out as much as we can. So 0 and 5. And I'll start off with the 0. I'm going to put that in the enlarger now, and we'll see what I get with my test strip. I've got my test strip piece of paper in there and my cardboard cover, and I'm going to give it 5 seconds for each exposure. So let's give it the first 5. There, that's nice. Cover up, another 5. Cover up, another 5. Good. Now you may ask, why aren't I doing f-stop printing? Well, in this particular case, I want the finest possible changes between my exposures. So I'm just using the 5s each time. Now, if they're too much, I can reduce them to 3 seconds or 2-second exposures or whatever I need. So I'll develop this now and we'll take a quick look at it. So here's the test strip and she's looking fine. Look at this one. It looks nice. Just a little bit of detail there, well underexposed, but that's what I want from the 0 grade. So I'm going to use the 5 seconds and we will now test for the grade 5. So I'll take out the grade 0 and we'll pop in the grade 5. And again, I'll do another test strip. Lovely, here we go. I'll get my card ready and I've set the timer to 5 seconds again, and we'll do more 5-second increments. First one. Cover up. Next one. Nice. Last one. So the first got a 5-second exposure and the last test is a 20-second exposure. Let's get it into the developer and take a look at this. So here's the test strip from grade 5. I'll just turn it that way. And we can see there's the 5 seconds here. This is the 5. This is 10, 15, and 20. Now, this one's not enough, but 10 seconds is looking good. I'm liking that. 15 is a little bit dark. It's almost looking like a normal print density, and we don't want that. That'll be too much. So it looks like 10 seconds is about right. Now, what's interesting is this, because we've chosen 5 seconds for the grade 0 and 10 seconds is looking good for the grade 5. Now, grade 5 is always twice. Grades 4 and 5 are both twice the lower grades when it comes to exposure. So what we're doing basically with a 5-second grade 0 and a 10-second grade 5 is giving it 50-50 exposure. And 50-50 exposure is grade 2. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, grade 2 is the correct grade, the right grade to aim for your medium format negatives. Now, when I say that, the right grade to aim for, remember we're talking here hypothetically. So the average landscape photograph is grade 2 for medium format. That's what I aim for. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little bit more, and that's in the eye of the beholder. Do you want an artistic effect? That means less grade or more grade. But what we're looking at here is basically we're giving this negative grade 2. Now, we'll try that out now. We're going to print a test strip with 5 seconds of grade 0 and 10 seconds of grade 5. And we'll have a look at what that looks like. Oh, let me just pull this one up as well, because this was our grade 0, wasn't it? So here's grade 0. There's that 5 seconds. Look how faint that is. And this is the 10 seconds that I like for grade 5. So you can see the difference there. What you might want to be looking at when you're doing split grade printing. So I'm going to do my test strip of both grades at the same time and we'll have a look at it. And here it is. And it's looking fine. Look how lovely and sharp and contrasty that grass is. It's lovely. It's really nice. This is the thing with split grade printing. You seem to get a little bit more micro contrast in the grades. And I think Steve Sherman is a great example of that with his techniques of split grade printing. And he's shown how much micro detail you get through his stand development and his split grade printing, or his, I should say, extreme minimal agitation and split grade printing. So we can take a bit of that and use it, yes please, and this is looking lovely, but a little dark. Now when you're split grade printing, if it's a little dark like this, reduce the 0 grade, because that will lighten it up. I could reduce the grade 5 too, but then I wouldn't be getting my blacks, and I need those. So I'm going to bring up the lightness of this print a little bit, just a tad, using slightly less 0, and I'm going to take it down from 5 seconds to 4 seconds, which was 20% reduction. So let's have a look at that. I have my grade 0 in first of all, so let's give it 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. Now very carefully, I'm going to switch filters. I don't want anything to move. There's the 5. And I'm going to give that 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's develop it. Here's the print, and I'm very pleased with it. It's very nice. Look how sharp. The detail of the FX1 developer and the split grade printing has brought out a lot of detail, lovely detail in this. FX1 is about as sharp as it gets. I think Barry Thornton's Pyro Catchin 2 bath is as sharp, maybe sharper, but this is up there with the very best of them. It's an excellent, excellent developer. Now, this is FP4 film, 200 EI, and I used the iodide additive, the part C. Some people say you don't need to use the part C anymore because all films are high iodide. I don't know if that's true. I tend to think that there are films out now that Crawly didn't even imagine when he passed, which are classic films using classic emulsions, things like the Chinese films, things like the Silver Max film from Adox, and films like that. So my advice to you is to test your film with and without the part C, the iodide part, and just see what you get. With my testing, and this is odd, I know, I'm going to tell you what I found with my testing, is that the medium format FP4 gives slightly sharper results with the iodide, but the 35mm FP4 Plus doesn't seem to make much difference between the two. So that's what I've got, and I haven't tested Pan-F. Crawly said Pan-F might work if you use an orange filter to reduce the blue light hitting the film. So that's interesting. That's something for us to try if we want to. But yes, I'm very pleased with this developer. Crawly's FX1, superb, still valid today, as valid as it was in 1960 when he released the formula. Fantastic, absolutely lovely, beautiful. As I look at this, the detail is three-dimensional detail, and I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there's the Mackie line running along between this dark area of the cave and the sea. There's a light Mackie line, acutance, high acutance developer. Excellent, excellent. Next week, whoops-a-daisy, next week we will be looking at FX2 and what can that bring to the table. I wanted to add this quick addendum to the end of this video because I have tested the FX1 against Rodinal because it reminded me very much of Rodinal. The grain is similar. It's not quite as big as Rodinal grain, but it's there. There is grain. and of course that adds to the sharpness, but I wanted to see what they were like side by side. So what we're looking at now is an FX1 print from a 35mm, and now I'm going to switch to the Rodinal print, and I don't think you'll see very much difference. In print form, the two developers act very similarly. So what's the advantage? Well, you could look at it this way. If you're a user of Rodinal, you can make FX1. It's very easy to make, and you will get very similar results to your Rodinal. So there's a way of having more fun, making your own developer, and yet getting the results you want, because we all know Rodinal is not an easy developer to make. So that's a big pro, I think, to know. I wanted to add this because of the similarities between the two developers. So thank you all for watching. Thank you to my patrons. Without you guys, we wouldn't have this channel, so you're giving this to the world. Thank you ever so much. Next time we're going to be looking at FX2 and the gradation it might give us, the sharpness it might give us, Crawly's second acutance developer. It's really interesting to see what it can do. So give me a thumbs up, share the channel, and I'll see you next time.